Hello and welcome to the HQ Movie Review Podcast. This is Josh,
This is Rachel.
I'm Jack.
And I'm Heather.
and we just watched Trick or Treat.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
Yeah, definitely. That's where we are.
Yep.
It's not February at all.
A couple days it won't be anyway. In fact, actually,
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
in the 1 days,
Yeah.
In less than, I don't know what time it is.
that's not important.
In a few hours.
So we just watched Trick or Treat, like I said. Any initial thoughts on that movie?
So I'd never seen Trick or Treat before. I knew it was in some regard a horror movie. I had no idea what this was going in.
Same. I had no idea what to expect, but it wasn't that.
I finally understand the scare zone at Halloween Horror Nights.
See, I too had no idea what this movie was about going in. I was like, I know it's Halloween and probably horror. And I ended up honestly laughing most of the way through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I right before the movie started, I looked it up to check if we had the right year and everything. And it was listed as a horror comedy. And I feel like there was a lot of comedy. I don't know if all of it was intentional.
Oh, I'd say more than half of it was not intentional. I think they were genuinely trying sometimes, and it just did not work. So,
Let's take it from the top.
taking it from the top, first of all,
Starts off with this fun safety message about trick-or-treating and how it's an important tradition and jack-o'-lanterns and all that, and then it fades into the movie. It just kind of, it's a weird start. I wasn't expecting the trick-or-treating PSA in black and white.
for one thing, there's no storyline that just goes from start to finish. It's like an anthology of mini stories that don't even take place in the same timeline, in the same order.
Yeah, we start off at one point, then we go to a certain point, we jump back to the beginning, we go through again, and then we jump back to before the beginning one more time, and end at the
And then
beginning.
we end at the beginning.
It's a very interesting construction, honestly.
It was real confusing first watching. Now, having seen it, it makes more sense in hindsight than anything else. But in the moment, it just says earlier and later. And it's like, okay, cool. What is this? When is this?
They give us the newscast as a timestamp of, hey, it's 8 o'clock now. And aside from that, it's just kind of figure it out.
You really just need to rely on seeing the characters from the other storylines as they pass in and out of the background just to kind of get an idea of the positioning and the overall timeline.
Which was a
Yeah.
nice touch.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only thing I'm not entirely sure of is what was going on with Mr. Wilkins' thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he had this whole thing where he's poisoned a child, goes out, he probably already had the whole.
Yeah, because there was something else. There was already another.
Yeah, there was
body
already
in
another
there.
body in there, which they didn't show. That was never shown. He puts the body in there and has the whole conversation with Krieg. And then is filling the hole the entire time Krieg is having his whole encounter. And then comes inside and makes a jack-o'-lantern out of the child with his kid. And then somehow
And then he becomes He just becomes a vampire and leaves.
He's not even a real vampire.
he dresses up as a vampire and leaves, kills a woman, and then he's creepily stalking who we later find out is a werewolf. But he's creepily stalking her, and I'm like, how did you do this all in one night?
Yeah, this guy really mobile.
Yeah, he got around town, he went to the party in the woods, and this is all after what happened with the body.
Yeah.
There were a couple other small trees in his backyard, so this might just be a practiced and well-oiled murder tradition.
It seemed very unpracticed, the one we saw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he was really struggling a lot. Like, oh no, what do I do? He's like not. I'm having trouble like moving this dead body now, and like it wasn't dead, and
And also, his whole like murder thing hinged on like that kid coming up, eating, like taking the poison candy from his jar, then sitting on his stoop and eating it as he comes home from somewhere, because he wasn't even there at the start of it. Then he waits for that kid to be poisoned, then drags him inside, and is almost caught a couple times by other people just coming up and knocking on the door.
yeah, it seemed very unplanned. Like it just was like, all right, I'm gonna put candy out for whoever the fuck it is, and whoever it is they're gonna die.
Hopefully they're still here when I get here, and they've already eaten some of the candy.
Which I'm pretty sure the poison didn't even kill the kid. I think he killed him with the shovel.
I think the clown kid is the one that was like
Yeah, that was another kid. That was someone with a clown glove.
the off-camera death. Which I mean, also he already had that one in the pit. So if he hadn't poisoned the other one, I think that he would have just made a jack-o'-lantern out of that child.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, the kid that he poisoned was the jack-o'-lantern kid.
Yeah.
He when he put the body in there was no head. It was not him.
Oh, okay.
The poison did kill him, or the beheading killed him, regardless.
And this is the confusing part of the movie. We've already gotten away from starting at the beginning, because it began with the murder of one other person, which was the lady who came and decided to take all of her Halloween decorations down before Halloween was over.
Before like kids even started trick or treating.
Yeah, there were kids still trick-or-treating, and she's like, nope, we have to take all of this down. We put up like 1 million pieces of decoration. We have to take all of it down because my mother is showing up tomorrow, and she hates Halloween, and I hate Halloween. It's like, lady, there's no way you guys put up all of these decorations knowing you had to take them down the night of Halloween.
The boyfriend seemed a lot more into it than she did, and I almost feel like he might have just put them up one day when she wasn't there. Which, she's absolutely in the wrong for wanting to just like take down Halloween decorations in the middle of Halloween festivities.
Absolutely.
But I would like to talk about the boyfriend for a minute, in that he just didn't help her at all. This was a toxic relationship. She didn't want to do anything on Halloween.
Yeah.
I already had the boyfriend as the villain in my head, though, the second I saw her in that giant robot costume.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, she clearly didn't want any Halloween stuff.
If she had listened to him, she would still be alive.
Yeah, that's valid.
That is debatable, honestly. We know that Sam can get into houses. So if she had blown out the jack-o'-lantern and then just gone up to have sex with her boyfriend upstairs, then Sam would have just like come into the house and killed them.
No,
right?
I'm saying if she had listened to him and him telling her,
Not
hey,
to blow it out.
don't blow out the jack-o'-lanterns.
Oh, yeah, no.
Don't take down the Halloween decorations.
She absolutely would still be alive.
She absolutely would still be alive.
Oh, her mom is gonna show up the next day to an actual literal crime scene.
To be fair, how many murders actually took place?
Oh, there were so many. I was not counting. I feel like I should have been.
I mean, you kind of lose count during the like werewolf whatever scene.
There were so many.
There was just a lot of dead bodies, and Sam was just watching.
Yeah, Sam's just there.
Yeah, he's chilling.
He's like, yep, this is fine.
Also, we gotta talk about like the bullying of this like non-neurotypical child.
Neurodivergent is the term, but yeah, no. These kids show up and like, no, we have to, like, they have this really elaborate plan. So like, they're collecting jack-o'-lanterns all night. They get this girl to like come with them to like sacrifice the jack-o'-lanterns in like respect of these like other neurodivergent kids who died in a tragedy like years ago, and then they pretend to be zombies and scare her, and then the actual zombies was not part of the plan, but this is just, they put a lot of effort into scaring this one girl who they, as far as I could tell, never talked to before.
Yeah, they just showed up at her house. We're like, we're gonna take your jack-o'-lanterns. You want to come down to the
old abandoned rock quarry.
the old abandoned quarry?
I feel like that was their entire goal from the beginning, and then they're like, man, we just don't have enough jack-o'-lanterns. And they're like, well, we'll just have to make do. And they get there, and there's just a fuck ton of jack-o'-lanterns. And they go, oh, cool, this works out. Like, I feel like that was their plan from the get-go. It wasn't just like, oh, well, she has a bunch, so we're just gonna, like, scare her instead.
No, I think that the girl that was dressed as an angel, the ringleader of that whole situation, absolutely knew that she had all those jack-o'-lanterns. Because you hear them, like, she's like, oh, no, I know where we can go. And they're like, why didn't we start here? There's so many. Like, it might have always been the plan to bully that girl, but, like, I don't think for a second that there was any kind of like, oh, well, we don't have enough jack-o'-lanterns. I think it was all just part of the plan.
Yeah. They knew what they were doing.
I still kind of feel bad for like Schrader, that one kid who was like, hey, no, we actually like really scared her. We should leave.
Yeah.
He was a part of the prank, but he kind of had a conscience about it. He's like, okay, nope, we went too far. We should go. Had he left when like the other two started screaming, he probably would have lived too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably. But he turned around. You don't ever turn around in a horror movie.
He turned around and then he stopped. He caught up with them. They're like, hey, there's other people here. We have to go. And he's like, what? Hey, do you hear that? What is that? It's like, Schrader, what the fuck did I just say, my guy? There's other people. We have to go. Even if it wasn't like supernatural zombies, if it's just like other violent people, we should go.
Okay, but going back to the zombies, in the original tragedy that happened, what the fuck was the original plan there? Like, the only reason they drove off the cliff was because that one kid got loose and was like, I want to go home, and just drove the bus off the cliff. What would have happened?
So I think the original plan was like the bus driver gives them all candy, and then like he gives them candy to like as like a final treat, and then he just drives the bus off the cliff and jumps out or something. I assume that's what the plan was.
And based on the fact that we can almost be assured that Krieg was the bus driver, that's probably how it went down. Because the whole story had, one of the kids breaking free and driving them off the thing, but then they're like, well, the bus driver was never found. So either that happened and the bus driver just got away, or the bus driver succeeded in his plan as is.
Yeah.
Because the other thing was the kid who got away was absolutely one of the zombies too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, he was driving when the bus went
Yeah.
over in the story, but still.
Yeah, but in the story he got out. He was the only one to escape.
No, the bus driver was the only one that escaped.
Yeah, no, it was the bus driver.
Yeah.
Like, no one ever found the bus driver again, and the kids were just never found. And they're like, maybe no one looked.
Yeah, but then I thought it was the kid that came up on shore and like
No, that was definitely the bus driver.
We even saw the mask of the kid that drove the bus float up into the water.
yeah. I just assumed it came off and because the guy who came out didn't have the mask. That's why I assumed it was the kid.
No, okay.
Oh.
So the next story plot, which is after the initial couple, like, is these girls who are dressing up as like sexy whatever for Halloween. And at first it seems like they're just like really bad friends to the youngest girl who's dressed up as Red Riding Hood. This story develops later on, but like when we first meet them, it's just like, oh, these are all kind of bad friends to this one girl. Like, they dress up, two of them steal their costumes, and then they just kind of ditch her downtown to go to a party in the woods.
Not to spoil the arc, but thinking back to the runt of the litter comment, it makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah, like just about everything they did makes a lot more
Yeah,
sense.
a lot of the comments that they made were very, like, you look back on them and you go, oh, no, there's a second meaning to this.
Yeah, no, like this one was actually, aside from the effects at the very end, this one part of the anthology was very well written. There was a lot of like intentional double entendre, and everything had a secondary meaning, and it's just like, oh, okay, it all checks out at the end. It's a good twist, but they do seem like really bad people, like to this one girl
Well,
specifically.
I mean, are they really good people?
No, but that's for different reasons.
Is anyone in this story really a good person?
The little witch girl who gets bullied
That's
did nothing
valid.
wrong.
You're right.
So the characters that they were dressed up as, you had Little Red Riding Hood, Bo Peep,
Cinderella.
and
Snow White,
Snow
Snow
White.
White.
Yeah.
Okay.
which doesn't super look like a Snow White costume, but the colors are the giveaway there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, I got Little Red Riding Hood and Bo Peep connection to wolves, and I was like, is there a connection for the other two?
I feel like they were just like, here's some other sexy Halloween costumes.
I
That's
feel
it.
like they're just like, all right, cool. They put time and effort thinking in about the first two characters, and then just went, whatever. It's just they're gonna be whatever.
None of the other people at the Woods party were like themed around wolves. They were just in costumes.
Yeah.
It's just the Red Riding Hood was specifically thematic because like she was the new person. She had to lure the guy there.
And they do mention that her dressing up as Red Riding Hood was tradition.
Yeah. Actual props to that one part of the anthology. It's very well written.
Just that one, though.
Yeah. Also, I mean, I say it's well written. The final part of that scene or that storyline, just a lot of unnecessary everything. The
Yeah.
wolf effects were bad, and also there's just a lot of nudity that just happened.
There is so much unnecessary nudity and sex in this movie that is just everywhere. It's just prolific.
Like I realize it's rated R, but this movie is like surprisingly horny.
Yeah, like it's just so unnecessary.
I feel like if you took out all of the unnecessary horniness, the movie wouldn't need to be rated R.
I mean, there's also a lot of murder.
Here's the thing, there's a lot of murder, but there's murder and gore in PG-13 movies, and not a single death took place on screen.
I guess so. Yeah, because they kind of did cut away on everything.
This movie is rated R entirely because they wanted to put titty in it.
And language.
And language.
They dropped several F-bombs.
Yeah. If they could have cut that number down to 1 and taken out the nudity, could have been PG-13.
I mean, shoot, let them keep their R rating. I don't care.
I don't think that I'm not saying that they shouldn't.
This is a mental experiment.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Like, the boyfriend at the beginning did not need to be fucking watching
Just
porn.
watching porn. He fell asleep watching porn, waiting for his girlfriend to finish cleaning up all of their Halloween decorations.
That's why he's a bad boyfriend.
He is.
We never said he was a good girl or
He's definitely not a good girlfriend.
Yeah.
a good boyfriend. Just that if she had listened to him about not blowing out the jack-o'-lantern and taking down the Halloween decorations, she would have lived.
She also sends like a really weird mixed message because like she's like, oh no, we need to take all these down. He's like, hey, you want to go upstairs? And it's like, all right, well, she's talking about cleaning up, and you're like, hey, let's go have sex. It's like, all right, buddy, you're not even listening at this point. But then she's like, all right, yeah, go put on the tape. And then she starts cleaning up the entire yard. Like hold on, buddy.
She's gonna
what?
get this done in 5 minutes, then be up there, and it's like, what?
Maybe if you helped her.
Yeah, like ruining Halloween really gets me in the mood too, you know?
Yeah, it was everywhere in the entire movie, and it was completely unnecessary. It didn't add anything.
Yeah, it just kept happening. In fact, the opening scene of the Mean Girls is like a kid peeping on them changing. It's like, hold, what? Why?
It's a beautiful opportunity for one of my IMDb fun facts. That kid, that's the kid that played Sam for the rest of the movie.
I thought he looked like the right height. I saw him and I was like, that looks like the same size as that one character we just saw.
Hey, it's a good observation, but I definitely thought I thought you were gonna say he looked like Sam, and I was like, that's mean. You see Sam's face later. That's not a human face.
No, it's not like he didn't look. The body size matched up, and I was like, oh, that looks like it could be the same guy. I thought it was like Sam in human form.
Yeah, but he had a mom.
Well, we don't know it was his mom, just that it was an adult woman who caught him.
She like held his hand and pulled him away. I feel like that's his mom.
This was also 2007.
This was 2007. That's a good point. So, the next point I had written down was that, like, for a town that is this big on Halloween, there were way too many people doing last minute, like, Halloween stuff. Like, I know we were joking about, like, hey, this woman wants to take down her Halloween decorations on Halloween. There are people who are still, like, actually carving pumpkins. I know Mr. Wilkins is a bad example, but there are people, like, buying their costumes at 8 p.m. on Halloween night. What are you doing?
They're buying their costumes while wearing them.
Yeah.
They're like, here's the tag, come scan it. And also, that costume was so expensive.
Yeah, it was like almost $250.
That's on brand for like a high quality Disney princess costume on Halloween.
Fair.
As someone
I-
who's checked.
I guess. I
Fair
mean,
enough, but-
I would never spend that much money on a costume.
For an outfit that you're going to viscerally rip off later.
Yeah.
Yeah, but still, there's just way too many people doing a last minute Halloween preparation on a day that, like, even if you don't know all this magic is happening, Halloween seems to be a huge part of this small town's culture. And they're still like, oh yeah, no, it's 8 o'clock. The costume store is packed. It's full of people.
And that guy's like, oh yeah, my shift ends in 20 minutes.
Yeah, the only cashier at this one Halloween store just left to go to a party.
And there's just like a ton of people in there. And it's like, are you getting like, you're gonna have a shift from like, it was after 8 o'clock,
Yeah.
right?
It was, I think, while the 8 o'clock thing was going on, but like still, there's someone coming in from like 8:15 to midnight for this one store
Yeah.
in the middle of downtown. That's already packed.
It's like, it's its own shift, those 4 hours.
I've had event shifts like that though. I guess that's fair. So Billy was an asshole, right? Billy Wilkins?
Oh, the child.
Yeah.
Oh, my god, yeah.
I hate
Yeah.
that kid so much.
He's so annoying.
He was just Dennis the Menace.
Yeah. He's just like upstairs screaming at his dad. His dad's like, hey, can you be quiet? Why?
I think that it would have been cinematically beautiful if the entire time that we're having the Mr. Krieg sequence, you can just hear this muted, like, Dad, I don't want to watch Charlie Brown. Charlie Brown's an asshole.
That's my favorite holiday special. You're an asshole, Charlie Brown. This kid was so annoying. And like, honestly, I was on the fence whether I would be sad if like Mr. Wilkins got fed up and murdered his own son.
I was kind of rooting for Mr. Wilkins when he picked the knife up.
Yeah. I was like, Billy's been like just a real bother this whole movie. His every single line was just on my nerves.
So it just occurred to me during that sequence where he's like, yeah, okay, let's go carve the pumpkin. And the kid just like goes and he's leading him. He picks up the knife and hides it. Like clearly the kid knows what's going to happen.
Billy knows why they're going into the basement to carve a quote unquote pumpkin. The knife didn't need to be a surprise.
He thought about it just a little bit. He thought about killing him.
So another thing that I just thought of with regards to Mr. Wilkins is the first thing we see of him is he like drugs this kid, right? Or poisons the child,
Yeah.
right? Child starts violently throwing up
Yeah.
everywhere
Yeah.
on his porch. Like 3 minutes later, a bunch of children come walking up, knocking on his door, and don't think anything of the bloody vomit that's everywhere.
Yeah, it's all over the porch. It's all over his shirt. They're like, oh, that's a real good costume, Mr. Wilkins.
There was one kid, he looked down and went, oh, wait a minute.
Also, I think it's safe to say that, like, all of the candy in there was poisoned.
Yeah.
It's like those kids, they didn't survive. They just weren't at Mr. Wilkins' house later.
The razor blade chocolate that Sam uses on Krieg came from Mr. Wilkins. IMDb fun fact.
Yeah, I feel like that's something he would have did.
Yeah.
I think this is where that like comes from. Like every year people are like, oh man, they're gonna put razor blades in their chocolate, and no one ever does that. It's just a wild thing.
Because, like, you have to imagine how much work it would be.
You have to open the chocolate, like stick the razor blade in there, reseal the candy bar.
Yeah.
No, you have to reseal the bar.
Yeah.
Like, you have to melt the chocolate back so that it's smooth again, and then reseal the plastic.
There's so much work involved in this. I don't.
Yeah.
It's like when people are like, oh no, they're putting drugs in your candy. And it's like, no, why would anyone put drugs that they could be selling into free candy for children who have no money to buy drugs? Anyway, it's just that I always thought that was weird. It's like, hey, this doesn't make any sense. Why would anyone do this? And some people are just bad, so who knows? I thought the line of Mr. Wilkins, like, oh, always check your chocolate, was kind of dumb considering the person he said it to was poisoned, so there was no way he could check that.
Yeah,
There's no way he could check for that.
it's like, always check your chocolate. By the way, there was nothing you
Yeah.
could know about this chocolate.
There was poison that you could not see.
Now, intro sequence and the closing sequence and all the timestamps were framed in such a way that it was a comic book.
Yeah.
Is this based on a comic?
I don't know.
I don't think it is.
I think they just really wanted to use Comic Sans as all the like text on screen.
Imagine if that was really the reason.
I mean, one, the opening sequence didn't spoil every single like vignette, but it did like give hints and like, oh, hey, there's gonna be a thing. It's gonna be a chocolate bar with a razor in it. It's gonna be like Krieg, he knows something. Everybody shows
Krieg
up.
knows
Yeah.
for about, I don't know, an hour.
Not even that. He knows for like 5 minutes.
And then he's basically murdered by the people that he murdered.
Yeah. So I mean, this movie very big on comeuppance, but also like this town just has so many murders in one night. There's no way no one notices anything. Like,
I feel like the werewolves probably got away pretty scot-free.
yeah, because they don't live in this town. They came here just for fresh meat.
Also, they were in the middle of the woods, and I'm pretty sure they devoured all the bodies.
There's just be a bunch of costumes out there.
Yeah.
The werewolves got away scot free, but I don't feel like comeuppance was a thing coming for them because they were supernatural beings. and
They
they're
were
just
the
eating.
comeuppance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even though like a lot of those guys were like clearly Wilkins, he deserved that. He was out there pretending to be a vampire. He didn't even need. He was just killing people with his weird vampire teeth.
The costume store guy didn't deserve it.
Store guy was just doing his job. He got invited to a party by a pretty girl, and then she killed him. I don't know what hot dog guy was doing. I feel like he was in that party.
Hot dog guy was at the
The drunk woman's house.
drunk teacher.
Mrs. Henderson. He was
Yeah.
at Mrs. Henderson's party, so I guess I think he did deserve that.
He deserved it just from the emotional trauma
To the audience.
to the audience and to the children
To
at the
that
door.
pirate kid, this Miss Henderson comes to the door in her like cat costume, completely drunk, offers the kids if they want a drink, like shakes her butt in their face, and then like has the door wide open while hot dog guy is, as pirate kid said, fucking a pig. What?
It was someone in a pig costume.
I mean, I guess it was a person in a pig costume, but still, they were just like in full view of the front door. They know there are children coming to the door on this holiday, and they're just busy having a weird like costume sex party. See, a hot dog guy probably deserved being eaten in the woods.
I don't know a lot about adult man dressed as a baby, but that's all the information I need to know that you probably deserve to be there.
Yeah, also
Yeah.
that I don't really feel
Yeah.
sympathy for him. I'd also like to bring up, because we just went back to the main menu, the thumbnail for this movie on Amazon is the one girl in her Cinderella costume. It's just a close up of her like her face and neck, and it's really hard to tell if you've never seen this movie what this movie is based on that thumbnail.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with anything in this movie. And not only that, but every other place to watch this movie has it listed as a 2007 movie. Meanwhile, Amazon listed as a 2009 movie, but then the trailers are the same. So Amazon has a weird thumbnail and the wrong year.
Yeah, we thought this was a different movie.
So here's why that is. Trick or Treat was originally set to release in theaters in 2007. However, another movie came out in 2007 by the name of Saw.
Ah.
Okay, they didn't want to compete with that. That's fair.
I'm pretty sure that and one of the main like creators on Trick or Treat had just done a Superman film that flopped horribly, and so they kind of wanted to like give it time before his name was attached to something else. So they pulled it, and then it didn't release in theaters ever. Instead, it went straight to DVD in 2009.
Interesting. I also just like I don't remember this coming out, so I always thought Trick or Treat was an older movie. Like you hear about it being like a classic. I thought it was like a '90s classic.
I did too.
Yeah, I kind of assumed that was the case as well. When I saw it was 2007, I questioned when you said it was a classic.
No, this is a lot of people's favorite Halloween movie.
No, I'm sorry. I'm looking at my notes here. So The note was about the kids pranking the witch girl, and it's that they were fake zombies and also that they were assholes. But I wrote it very quickly in the dark, and so it so it reads kids, comma fuck zombie assholes. So
Oh my God.
yeah,
Wow.
Josh, how many things did you misspell
Oh.
in your notes?
So when I said misspell, it was more like I wrote over the same letters. So like I wrote excessive decorations in the beginning. That was like the first thing I wrote. And it's just like all the S's are just like on top of each other. It's just like in the dark, I thought I was moving my hand and I was just writing all the letters on top of each other.
Nice.
Unnecessary was another word that also got the same treatment. Also, I misspelled Halloween.
come on, man.
That one I did just misspell because I was trying to write fast.
I really like this other note I've written that just says "Clown Squad has a bad time."
Oh
'Cause
yeah.
it's true. There's these three kids who are dressed as clowns, and like the first scene we see them in is that they witness a woman get murdered and then run away, and that's at the very beginning of the movie. And then the entire rest of the movie is them walking around and like not getting candy and then getting scared away.
But at least they didn't die.
You know, that's debatable. I'm not sure
Yeah, we're not sure about the one.
because we know that there was one of the bad bodies that Mr. Wilkins was trying to bury was someone in a clown costume who was not dead when he first like
Oh,
started trying to
Yeah,
bury
but that
them.
had to happen before 8 o'clock, though.
Yeah.
That's true. He was already like in a sack in the ground by the time the Mr. Wilkins sequence happened. And I don't think that the scare for them happened
Yeah.
until like right before that.
Yeah, because their first scene, which is them seeing the woman get like her throat slit under the cover, takes place after those people already get home, which is after like all of the partying stuff at 8 o'clock because they were still downtown at 8
Yeah.
when the
Oh,
newscast
yeah.
was happening.
That's also like one of the last things that happens.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the
Like-
end of the movie.
Like Welkin's like already dead.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this movie is it has a lot of really interesting like filmmaking concepts. Like it starts at the very end and we go back and forward through time to see all these different like viewpoints.
I kind of wish that they did nail down like times instead of just earlier and later, because it did make it kind of a pain in the butt while you're watching the movie to keep track of when things are happening.
Yeah, the very last later, I was like, hey, is this later the same night or like the very next year? Because like Mr. Wilkins, or not Mr. Wilkins, Krieg goes from like having glass in his hands and like razor knives in his feet and having his like a tendon, like his Achilles tendon cut to like, all right, he opens the door and he's like fully bandaged and he's handing out candy and he's just standing there. I'm like, hold on, man. This guy should not be able to do any of these things. Even if he was able to bandage himself without passing out from blood loss, there's no way he's standing at the door handing out candy.
Yeah, dude had his ankle cut. Like, he's not standing at all. Like, he'd be in shock.
It's a bit of a stretch that he managed to go that whole sequence just by like limping around.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you could say adrenaline, but afterwards.
Oh, yeah, no. He would be hit with shock so hard he'd be unconscious. And not only that, but during the sequence, his hands, like dude had some, like, superpower healing.
Yeah. At one point, his hands are so bloody and messed up, he can't take like the locks off of his door. And then later in that same sequence, he won't even cut away. He dials his rotary phone to call the police, and there's like no blood anywhere. It's like he stopped and washed his hands and like had Wolverine's healing ability in the middle of that scene.
Yeah, and he's, like, fumbling with the shotgun shells. Like, I say fumbling. He just, like, calmly shoves them in the barrel, and I'm just like, you didn't have the dexterity before to open your locks, but now you're taking the shotgun shells and just slotting them in there like it's no big deal. It's like, that happened 2 minutes ago. Those cuts are, like, still so raw that some of them probably haven't even started bleeding yet.
I also really like that whole sequence starts because like Sam just decides to fuck with this guy. Like usually someone like, I mean, I realize he did commit a crime earlier in time, but usually if you're gonna start messing with people like on Halloween, the spirits are like, Sam specifically is like, hey, I'm only gonna mess with you if you do bad tonight. Sam just starts attacking this guy before he's really done anything on Halloween.
No.
No,
He
no,
did do
he-
something.
yeah, he
had
scared
the
those kids
dog
and stole
scare
the
kid
candy.
and stole the candy.
Oh, that's right, he did. You're
Because
right.
they were trick or treating, and he violated the rules of trick or treat.
You're right. You are correct. I
Which-
forgot about that.
That actually brings me back. Something else I wanted to talk about the opening of the film is we see those safety guidelines in like the PSA, but we never actually get like a breakdown of the rules that you have to follow to not get killed by Sam.
Because, like, obviously, not blowing out. Obviously, you don't blow out your jack lantern too early. But like the PSA rules, like, hey, don't go to a stranger's house. It's like, well, that's just what Halloween is. And then like he steals the candy from those kids. That wasn't like explicitly stated, but obviously stealing candy from children is wrong. It's also unclear why the zombie kids came back this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why we waited the amount of time because they said that the quote Halloween school bus massacre happened 30 years ago.
Yeah, those kids waited 30 years to come back and get their revenge.
Maybe that was just the amount of time that it took for Krieg to invoke the wrath of Sam, at which point Sam could roll up and
We do also see Krieg was burning the photos of like the kids, so maybe that was it.
maybe that was it. But also, why did he wait that long to do that
So that
too?
he had those for 30 years. All of this very incriminating evidence against him.
Yeah, I would if I was a bus driver that murdered a bus full of kids, I would probably get rid of that evidence immediately.
I'd probably not still live in that town.
Probably not still live in that town.
I think the only like really egregious crime is that Sam hurt the dog,
Yeah.
and that dog did nothing wrong.
God, the room when we heard the dog yelp. Every single person just, no, why? Why the dog didn't do anything?
Sam, we're on Sam's side, like exclusive, like everyone else we kind of flip flopped on. I don't think I was ever not on Sam's side at any point in this movie, except for when he hurt the dog, because the dog was just trying to protect his home. He didn't know that like Krieg had done anything. He was just like, hey, I live here. There's weird stuff happening. I'm gonna bark. And Sam was just like, nah, it was unnecessary.
The dog was just being a dog.
The dog did eat a child finger.
The dogs are
The
gonna
dog
eat whatever.
Yeah, he was given the child finger. He didn't take it.
He
You
probably didn't
murder
even
a
know what it
child
was.
to eat its finger.
Yeah, he had some meat thrown to him over a fence, and he was like, "Yeah, I'll check this out, sure."
Dogs are just doing dog things.
I will say that I'm at least they didn't show the dog dead on screen.
Yeah, I would have just stopped watching.
Yeah, it is. It's plausible that Sam just hurt the dog, and the dog doesn't show up again.
Yeah. It is entirely possible that that's what happened. However, the blood on the walls.
There was a lot of blood. on
There
those
was a
walls.
lot of blood on the walls.
The dog yelp was actually just Sam magically transporting the dog to a safe and loving home.
He sent the dog to a farm, an actual magic farm.
It's a pumpkin patch.
Yep.
He went to go live with Grandma.
Oh no.
Hey, so do you think? Speaking of, anyway, do you think Mr. Wilkins murdered his wife too, or is that just an incidental fact that she's also dead? It's been long enough for his son to like question it.
I think that that's a very valid point. Especially given his penchant for... No, actually, here's why I don't think that he murdered his wife. Point 1. He murders a bunch of kids, but he doesn't kill his own kid. He also tries to kill several women and succeeds to killing one of them. And so I think that if we follow the pattern of behavior, unless his wife just didn't know that he did these things,
You're saying she was in on it?
I'm saying she might have been in on it. I think that they might have been a whole little serial killer family. Either that. So, and if that's the case, then no, he didn't kill his wife. Or she was his first victim.
Or her death is what incited his murderous tendencies.
Fair.
Could be.
She dies. He's grief stricken, hates his child, but does not want to murder the child because it's the last thing that, you know,
It's the last piece of her left.
it's the last piece of her that's alive. Wow, yeah. And because he hates his child so much, he takes it out on other children by having them murdered.
But then the child also turns out to have very serial killer tendencies.
Yeah, that's the thing is that kid was like super hype about like carving that other kid's face out.
Well, I mean, if you grow up with a serial killer, I'd say that's probably, what happened.
That man was the school principal also, just so everyone remembers.
Well, on the upside, he's not anymore.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Man, like, they're gonna go back to school on Monday and be like, alright, well, we're missing 37 children and the principal's dead. What's going on?
Yeah, the police are gonna be real confused when the day after Halloween comes.
He left, like, a corpse just on the street in front of everybody.
Yeah.
He even did the dramatic eye close thing.
Yeah.
Like, he just did that and no one cared. Those drunk people he later next to are gonna wake up the next morning and be like, hey, are you okay? And she's gonna be ice cold.
And just super bloody.
Also, are we going to talk about how Wilkins just killed a woman with fake vampire teeth?
He probably had those specially made.
I think that was a really good twist. It's like, all right, well, we've seen some supernatural things. Now we're introducing a scary vampire. And like he first shows up and he's really bad at vampiring. Like he's just getting blood everywhere. And then like later it turns out it's Wilkins and it makes sense why he's bad at it. But yeah, no, I think it really is impressive that he was able to do enough damage with these teeth that this woman died.
They really do a good job of like leaving little clues about like the things that aren't what they seem.
Yeah, this is a surprisingly well-written movie despite everything else about this
I
movie.
mean, to be fair, it does have 4.5 stars on Amazon with almost 13,000 reviews.
That is insane. That is insanity.
A lot of people like this movie.
I didn't think it was as bad as you guys did.
You
I
know,
I didn't
wouldn't
think
say
it was
yeah, I wouldn't say
bad.
bad.
I'd say no, I'd say a 2 out of 5.
That sounds like a bad.
That sounds like
It's
a
pretty
bad
bad.
movie.
I
No,
don't
it's pretty
think
bad.
I don't think it's I think that this is a very fair assessment. Like I mean if you look at it from a critical standpoint, we're talking about that it's well written.
Yeah, no,
It's got a unique editing practice where
solid twists.
solid twists. It leaves little clues. Like it's not these things aren't out of nowhere.
It's very
Yeah,
stylized.
That's the 2 stars.
But that's like at least like 3 or 4 things.
Yeah, worth 2
Like
stars.
what were the negatives that you think would take stars away?
Unnecessary gratuitous sex scenes, the stupid effects that ended up being more comedy than actual.
To be fair, it is
horror or
listed in the
anything.
comedy genre, so
It's also listed as comedy before horror.
yeah. So it's. I don't know if we can count those
That's
against
alphabetical.
it.
I would hope C would go before H.
I mean, maybe, but like the starring list isn't.
Well, that has billing. Like that's billing order. Genres are gonna be in alphabetical order.
Here's the thing. Like I don't think that the effects that we saw, a lot of the effects that we saw were not bad at all. The things that were arguable were the werewolf transition.
Very thriller.
Very bad.
The werewolf transition I would agree is not good. But a lot of it was practical effects. Like you see them pulling like latex skin off of the werewolf transitions. It's just touched up with CG. That one I'll give to you. The design of the skeleton, the skull under Sam's hood.
Design of Sam's face is just funny.
That's just a design choice. I don't think that there was anything poorly done about the application of that effect.
Yeah, no. There were a few times where it looked weird as all hell.
Yeah.
And just fake. But again, design choice, not necessarily bad effects.
Yeah.
So you say like, oh, it had really good writing. And to me, I do see a few good writing like things and moments, but as a whole, everything just felt so contrived and just like everything just happened. There was no overarching story. It was just, hey, you break the rule, now you're haunted by Sam and you're gonna die.
I think the issue here is that you're just not particularly a fan of the anthology
Yeah, I'm
format.
not a big fan of that, like, unconnected storylines just happening all at random. It just felt like there was nothing that tied it together, you know?
I suppose. I will say that for all of my griping about the parts, the movie itself is greater than the sum of those parts. There are a lot, like we mentioned a lot of the things that I had issues with. Like, it was very silly in some parts that I don't think it meant to be silly in, but as a whole, it was pretty good.
I would have given it 3.5 to 4 stars.
Yeah, 3.5 is about where I'm sitting.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
I'd say at most 2.5 for
What?
me.
Darn it, now we're just a movie review, not a movie review podcast. We all rated it.
Oh man,
No, I felt like I needed to step up to bat for this movie.
That's fair.
I don't like horror. Well, I don't. I don't care for movies in general, but I really don't like horror movies. I'm sure you noticed me just looking away at random parts because I can't stand it. But I thought this was a pretty good movie.
Yeah, as
Like, in general, fairly good. Wouldn't watch it again just because I don't like the horror aspect and the, gratuitous nudity that is everywhere in the film. But overall, solid movie.
yeah, no, as someone else who does not like horror movies, I agree completely with that.
Yeah. As someone who like does not mind horror movies, I thought it was just a really bad one. Like it didn't like it wasn't enough of a horror movie to be truly horror, and it was like kind of just comedic only in the sense that it was bad at horror.
I think it was just a different kind of horror. I'm giving a lot of credit to the anthology because I disagree where I think that the anthology is really well done and that the only thing that really needs to tie it together is its several people's stories as they experience the same night in the same town.
And it all overlaps. Like, every single piece of the story touches at least 2 other pieces.
I don't think it's necessarily a strong horror movie, but I think it's a strong Halloween movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will definitely agree with that.
I mean, as a Halloween movie, yeah, but I don't know. I didn't like how it was too disconnected. Like I'm fine with anthologies, but you have to have something more connecting it for me. It just the way I think about things, I make connections, and when it's just so far fetched, it's like I'm watching different movies. Just oh yeah, it has the same actor in it.
Yeah, it's a mini cinematic universe.
Yeah, and I'm just not a big fan of that.
I want to get out the whiteboard. I want to get out the whiteboard so bad.
We're not pulling another Cloud Atlas.
I'm not
We're
gonna
not doing
I'm not
that.
gonna pull a Cloud Atlas. I'm not gonna get out the whiteboard. I just wanna draw lines connecting all of the things. I feel like you're just not seeing where they line up.
No, I see them. It's just that they're like just thin strings instead of like full on like ties.
It's just like little details because when it's Mr. Wilkins' kid is like, will you take me to the parade? They're just like, no, I have a date. And that date is that he's gonna go murder those women.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And that's a little connect the dot. And then we see never mind. I'm not
I'm not discounting that the writing for that is good. I'm just saying I personally don't like that. Like I'm not a big fan, and therefore that's not enough to like raise my rating of the movie. I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying it's not.
You gave it 2 stars.
Yeah, because everything else was bad. I'm saying that was part of what gave it the 2.5 stars. That was good writing. I didn't think it was good enough to balance out all the other bad things. Like I thought the entire time that every bit of nudity and sex was completely unnecessary, added nothing except just weird awkwardness. The horror elements just fell completely flat 90% of the time. It's just it wasn't good. I mean, the writing was fine. It was good, but it just didn't offset the bad.
so final thoughts from other people. I feel like you've given a good summation of how you feel about this, Josh.
I feel like that was my final thoughts.
My final thoughts. I think it's a very strong Halloween movie. I definitely see why Universal has brought it out to Horror Nights so many times. I think it's a very good scare zone, a very good haunted house. I think it translates very well to the concept of Halloween Horror Nights.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's got a lot of
I can agree with that. Yes.
interactable things and a lot of immersive like imagery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I liked it. It has a very good Halloween. I liked it well enough. I had a very good Halloween feel. It wasn't a super scary movie, which I mean, it's cool. That's not what I'm looking for in a movie. That said, I don't know if I would watch it again, but I'm not upset that I watched it.
I think I would put it on my Halloween queue, like for the season.
Maybe it was like a background thing, like you have a Halloween party going. But actually, that'd be a weird thing to put on a Halloween party because of all those other scenes in it.
Yeah.
yeah. See,
And that's also something that you kind of have to, like, if you are going to enjoy the whole anthology thing, kind of have to be paying attention.
Yeah, I mean, it's got like a vibe to it. I appreciate that.
Honestly, if you had an edition that was edited out all of the gratuitous sex, honestly, that would be probably a 4 to 4.5 for me.
Right, so we see your hangups.
Yeah. No, I told you that was my hangups.
Yeah.
It's just weird and unnecessary.
Rachel just lost it.
Do you have something you want to share with the class?
No, I'm not going to bully Josh on this podcast any more than I have already today.
I appreciate it.
The second we stop recording, it's going to be a whole other thing, but I'm not going to put it in the podcast for posterity.
Good.
Well, for me, again, as someone who doesn't enjoy horror movies, probably not something I'd watch again. I didn't think it was scary, but I think just a little bit too gory for me. Not necessarily like that the effects were good enough to trick me. Just I didn't like all of the gore that happened. That was probably one of my biggest things, besides the nudity that was everywhere. But overall, solid movie. Probably wouldn't watch again, but solid movie.
Josh, I think you're in charge of the outro.
Well, this has been Trick or Treat, and we're your hosts, Josh.
I'm Rachel.
Jack.
And I'm
We
Heather.
have to do it in the same order as we did at the opening.
And this has been the HQ Movie Review Podcast.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Mm.